Queen.
Thank you, Barry, for having me and talking with me.
Most definitely. So, just want to ask, some questions, and some of those questions pertaining to what I see is going on in this kind of new sense of urgency for Black America. With all the work that you and the Panthers did in your day to move us forward, so in 2015 we want to be doing the same kind of effect that you guys were doing, but we would have more of a place in America, or just in our own America. Does it frustrate you to see what's happening right now with all the work that you and your fellow comrades did at once upon a time?
Well, of course, it's disappointing, but it has no relationship to what we did, because we would be very arrogant to think that we came along and the world was going to change. Although we did in the beginning, some of us, say that, revolution in our lifetime. But this was rather arrogant of us to think that because we suddenly came along, 400 and some years of history would be transformed in a minute. The revolution is a process, as we like to say, and that process involves the masses of people. Our analysis was always that the people and the people alone are the makers of the revolution, not the party, not the vanguard party, certainly. The vanguard party, according to Lenin, in which Huey advanced, had the role of instigating, creating the conditions, creating the consciousness. And that's what we did, even in our programs, even with our guns. We weren't trying to be the community police. We were trying to advance the idea that the people had a right to defend themselves against police brutality and to take away that fear. So this was a consciousness raise. It was education. When we gave away free breakfast, it was to tell people, you have a right to eat. Nobody should be saying your child should go to school hungry because you don't have any money.
And now they do that in all the schools.
All the public. Well, they acknowledge that that came from the Black Panthers. Even the government will acknowledge that. Right. But the bottom line is, that's a sort of narrow perspective. If we want to talk about the freedom of Black people, the one thing we're not doing is talking about freedom. It's like Obama not talking about poverty. Like, we're just middle class. We don't even know what the middle class is. Everybody,
is there such a thing as a middle class?
We don't know. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yes. Okay, it's just some a concoction to match, so that we don't remember that we're actually poor and oppressed. When most people really are. Most Blacks, not only but others, are really not in charge of anything in their lives, and so therefore we have to fight for food. We have to fight to get a decent place to live. We don't even have health care, basic things that are not provided. Even the most other, satellite countries of the U.S. that are, capitalist countries like France provide health care for their people. This is, this country doesn't do that. So we have to see these things in concrete terms and not in abstract. As for a movement, in terms of Black people, we clearly don't have one. And so you have a lot of young people running around talking about Black Lives Matter. I don't know where they got this from. I've never heard anything so bizarre as
why do you say that's bizarre?
Who are you telling this to? White people? You want white people to like us? It's like, what? Black lives really matter. Stand up. You know when they'll remember the Black Lives Matter when we start shooting back. That's when it's going to happen. It's not going to happen because we ask white people.
Well, don't you think taking back power as far as economics?
It's no back. We never had power. Seizing some pieces of power. But the point is, unless we stand up like men, and I use that term as I did in a song I wrote, unless we stand up with our back straight and decide that we're going to take charge of where we can and be willing to die for that, as the Black Panther Party members were, then nothing's going to happen. You can't have a protest movement and think it's all right to shoot some guy in the back running away and we're just going to cry one more time and talk about woe is me. But we know, at least I would say, that there's one reason why we're not taking that final step. Because we're terrified. Terrified of losing our little jobs, not having our car notes, not losing our little scholarships, not getting our other stuff, our house or whatever. We are terrified of that, but mostly we're afraid of putting our lives on the line. And lastly, we're afraid of drawing the oppressor's blood, as I mentioned last night, which is an analysis that Frantz Fanon advanced when he studied the Algerian underclass, as we would call it, or the poor, and organizing around the struggle. The one thing they realized, they would kill everybody. Anybody would go out and shoot each other and, have violence in the street, as we say. But they were not prepared to shoot when the police come. How many of us know that one cop with one pistol with a 15-round clip can walk into the hood and everybody that's got a Uzi and everything else started dropping their guns,
lay down,
hiding, telling on me. They'll tell on their mother.
No doubt.
Don't
when they
get,
come.
Huh?
When they come, it's all.
One cop. I have seen this with my own eye. Young men who would slit somebody's throat in a minute over $10 worth of weed.
And kill their brother.
Yes, but it isn't the kill their brother part, it's that you don't want to kill the police. And the reason is because you're terrified, so you take out all your anger. It's like the man who beats up his wife because the boss beat him up.
Yes.
Or the woman who beats her children because her man beat her up. So we pick on this weakest person because we're afraid to cross that last line. We know what needs to be done here. Now that doesn't mean I'm saying, oh, we ought to just take up arms and fight the police. It's a loser. That is a loser. The Black Panther Party had a lot of guns. We had a lot of guns. I outlined that in my book, The Taste of Power. I delineate all the guns. We had big guns, and we had other kinds of, we had bombs and everything you could imagine that anybody could acquire. And remember, they were organized, and we were disciplined. So it wasn't like we had the guns. We would shoot. We did shoot. And the best example was in Los Angeles in 1969, December, when 11 of our comrades were in our facility there on Central Avenue, our main office in LA, and they were assaulted by the first wave of the SWAT team. Nobody ever heard of SWAT. It was invented for the Black Panther Party. And they assaulted us for 5.5 hours. 11 comrades, 2 sisters, 9 brothers, fought. They fired, we fired. They dropped down grenades, we threw the grenades back, tear gases and everything, and they still survived. Every last one of them survived. Only one person was hit, a sister named Tommy Williams, by a ricocheting bullet. But we fought, and some of the police were shot. So I'm not advancing that because we can't really win. No matter how hard we were and how dedicated.
Because you guys was hardcore.
Yes, and disciplined, but we knew that if we gathered all the guns that we had and all the troops that we could possibly say that would be ready for battle, we couldn't even wage war with the LAPD for past that 5.5 hours, okay? Much less if they called in the county sheriff, the state police, other local police, the National Guard, the Coast Guard, the United States Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, the FBI, the CIA, ATF. This is but we got to know this stuff because it can't be abstract.
You're right.
This is an armed camp that we live in. But what we do have to say is, do you really want to continue in this status? Or are you just comfortable enough to say, all right, it's kind of okay. I don't like it, but I got to go to work now. You know, I got to take care. I'm a man. I'm taking care of my children.
My family.
I have to take care of my family. We had families, and we lived collectively. There are models in that could be used, but it was hard. I don't necessarily advance recreating that particular model. But our
Go ahead.
Our model was not to create a mass movement. We intended to move into a mass movement. How could we have a hardcore people and a mass movement, an above ground and an underground, which wasn't easy because the FBI and the CIA have charted every single inch of this country we call the United States of America. So there's no hiding in the hills, you know, the Sierra Maestras. That's
that's funny because like when people say, well, we can't do this, don't post this, it's like they know what they want to know when they want to know it, period.
Well, there just isn't any, but there are things that can be done that you don't have to go to prison for. I like to say, I've never been to prison. So my point is, we have to have a movement, but that movement has to be an organized effort. It cannot be hit and miss every time somebody gets shot. If I'm the police across the country, except for this one little incident where this guy is now charged with murder.
And got fired.
Well, and what? Look at all the cases where nobody even knows about it. If it hadn't been for the video.
Exactly.
Blah, blah, blah. But the Oscar Grant case where I am in Oakland, Oscar Grant was shot in the back begging for his life.
Indeed.
On the ground, a brother. So, but in the Oscar Grant case, you had all these people screaming and saying, you know, how horrible it was. And I said, look here, brother, that's your friend. 4 of his friends were out there on that platform. Nobody tried to stop Mesley, much less whatever the other guy is, I can't think of his name. It was the second cop that held him down. Yeah. That's the part I'm talking about. We see what the pig did, but none of us made a move. We didn't even try to distract him. We didn't even throw a spit on him. We didn't even spit. And then we get out here crying and carrying on, talking about what the police did. And where is Mesley today? Working, been done 2 years, allegedly in somebody's jail or prison, and got a nice little job somewhere in LA, as I understand, maybe at the Long Beach harbor, or Long Beach port.
So he's still...
As far as I know, but I don't want to get into particulars because it doesn't matter.
But he's out free living, basically, bottom line.
Yeah, and that's the only case we have where a cop in the last round of things was actually charged and convicted. So the justice system, and then we go to people like Eric Holder and say, we want justice. Now, why would we go to Eric Holder to look for justice? We always used to say in the party, all right, you are going to report the police to the police. Now, does this make sense to you to say, I'm going to go to tell Captain Hooby Boo what his officer just did, and you actually think there's going to be a result that is going to have something to do with justice? So that was why the Black Panther Party put the guns on the street, and Huey was very clear about that. That we had decided that it was an absurdity for the oppressed to ask the oppressor for freedom. And that's what we're doing now. That's what Black Lives Matter. We're asking them to be kind to us. 400 years of oppression, and somehow we think, hands up, don't shoot. I said, no, hands up, man down, right?
Hands up, don't shoot. Is probably
no, hands up, man down is what they said. They should have said, gun up, start shooting, or something like this. But nobody said it. And then when the various parents of these people that get killed, they run around and say, I don't know why this happened. I don't know why my son was killed. Where are we, generally speaking? Because they're in control of every single aspect of our lives. And that includes, nobody gets outside of this process, including you and me.
Oh, most definitely.
Even if we want to, we can't. Where you gonna buy a car that's black made?
Black made, not black manufactured. I remember you was talking to me.
Yeah, I want to start a car thing. You bad? Am I bad? So, I think I just wanted to say something about how this happened. Two big events occurred between the end of the party, which the collapse of the party was certainly due to the efforts of COINTELPRO. There were personal things that happened. People like to point to Huey Newton. But these things are really not there.
But they're also, I remember you guys were very young at this time. So what?
Huey was 24 when he started the Black Panther Party.
That's young.
And you had people that were 17 and 18, mostly, that joined the party. I mean, I was one of the older people. I was Huey's age, a little younger, but basically. And so...
But it's still young.
Of course. We see it now, but, at the time, we actually thought we were older. We thought George Jackson was one of the oldest guys because he was 29. Martin Luther King was 33. Malcolm X was 33. Yeah. So, but the conditions were right. So it wasn't just, these men were born in good conditions. And so they seized the moment. And somebody would have done that because the conditions were there. The conditions are not here.
What do you mean conditions? What do you mean?
Well, the objective conditions are this. You had World War II was over, right? Okay. And so people were coming back from the war saying, okay, Jim Crow's over. And America was like, whatever. And all we saw was Jim Crow as a problem, right? Yeah. Because we just wanted to get into his world. Indeed. We just wanted to eat at his lunch counters and go to his schools and all of that.
Participate.
Yes. Remember, we had a big wave from Tuskegee to Marcus Garvey to talk about economic independence, and that was wiped out. Marcus Garvey's kicked out of the country by J. Edgar Hoover, right? And some Negroes that were in collaboration, including Du Bois. Yeah. So now we had a new phase. And what made it different was, people like Ida Wells Barnett had also tried to desegregate trains back in her day. So this wasn't, Rosa Parks, when people say she's not unique, but it was an important moment because you had a thing called television. Prior to World War II, who was looking at television? It didn't even exist. Okay?
Radio, it was all about radio.
So when you saw the dogs, because when people talk about the civil rights movement, they talk about, I saw those dogs, I saw those, that water hose, and there's film of this stuff, and it was shooting around the world, and the world was like, what? This is America, we love this because you've been criticized, And so there was all of that. There was a whole piece of that. So by the time you get to the March on Washington, Kennedy didn't want to greet them. Kennedy was overwhelmed by all that. Remember, he was president at the time. So you had the whole goddamn world suddenly saying, white people, black people, we want our rights. And you get the 1964 Civil Rights Act out of that, which said that people could not discriminate in a variety of arenas. But that didn't get us anything, because if you can't afford to live, stay in the hotel. The hotel can let you in or not. A, you don't have a hotel, meaning we. And B, you can't pay to be in the hotel. So it really didn't make that much difference. But it did galvanize people. And the reason everybody was so galvanized is because we could see it. Then comes the Vietnam War, same thing. People never saw war. But people were in Vietnam filming, and they were like, what? There's little Billy Bob over there killing this little 12-year-old girl. You know what I mean? We were like, people, all the white people in America were like, oh, this is horrible. So all these movements were coming about when people were learning and becoming conscious of what was going on in the world. Now, George Bush was the beginning of, well, first you had, well, he was part of that too. You had, as far as black people, you had the dumping of cocaine into our communities, right? I would advance it that the crack cocaine era, which is quite over, was the worst thing that happened to us since slavery. You had mothers turning on their children for crack. Now the black mother was always you could always say, no matter what happened, when the man couldn't get no job, and she was gonna hold up the sky, right? And you see these sisters out here selling themselves and their children for crack because it was that heavy. It became that heavy. It evolved into this horror, right? And the other part was, it was the only economy that we had for and it was a big economy. I'm Dante and them. I'm 12 years old. I know I ain't got no hope living over there on East 14th Street. I already get that. I don't go to school. I don't have any money.
No doubt.
And all of the other stuff that we know. And here comes somebody from Honduras. And that's what they did. And I watched it in Oakland. Here comes somebody from Honduras and said, you know, I'll give you this stuff and you could probably make $5,000 a day. Now I was making $5 an hour in McDonald's, which I hated. I came home feeling greasy. I hated it. It was undignified work. I can make $5,000 a day? I'll kill everybody in the area for $5,000 a day. What are you talking about? This is what all the banks do. This is what everybody else. They fight to kill. They ain't playing. That's why people get like Gaddafi get killed. These people ain't playing when it comes to that kind of money. So what we did was nothing unusual, but it was our only economy. So then we have the next big thing. Well, before that, you had COINTELPRO, which is basically still in existence, but there's nothing to really challenge the government.
Right now.
The little Black Lives Movement protests.
None of the movements are on the radar to the point where they feel they have to worry.
Right.
As much
Eric
as
Holder said, "Oh, let me go to Ferguson." You know. Eric Holder goes to Ferguson because he's like, "Oh, we're gonna have to look into these issues," and people are like, "Okay, thank you." At least he came. What did he do? So the point I'm making is, when COINTELPRO killed off so many people, put so many people in prison, discredited the party. People argue as a party, this and that. So by the time you get to the crack period, an economy building, you don't even remember the movement. They figured out how to erase the very memory of the Black Panther Party and other movements. People don't know who H. Rap Brown is. I'm writing his biography right now. We don't remember, much less know about this stuff. So the government and the Fourth Estate, the media, have successfully blinded us at a level that is almost unbearable. Now that's the most unbearable part. You have people like saying, I don't know why my son was killed. I can't say the word racism. I don't want to talk about race. These are black people.
Or even the black person that says we need to move away, move past.
Right. Or wait, let's forget that. Let's not keep on dwelling on slavery.
Slavery don't matter, Steve Harvey.
Right. Slavery doesn't matter. I mean, this is from a guy who has, no ability to think, right? So you have all these people, these talking heads who are the permitted media figures, the what do we call that? The selected Negroes,
yes,
right?
Indeed.
Well, why would I do that? I'm running the country. Like there's this notion of freedom of speech. Oh, I have freedom of speech. Okay, you do. but you're not going to get this in the New York Times unless you have advertising money, right?
Yeah.
So there's you're not really going to be on mass media in the establishment media, or even we have some opportunities and we can mess with those. But in general, the culture of America and the mindset of the people is based on the information given to them. And it's worse than misinformation, it's no information. Most people have no idea that Gaddafi was killed, who Gaddafi is, where Libya is, or why he was killed, or who killed him.
Well, we do. We believe Gaddafi
If we think about it.
was against America because that's what America programmed
Right.
us
Well,
to
that's
believe.
if you even paid attention to that.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of news on that. Remember that.
Yeah.
You got like snippets. You had more about Beyonce's hair.
Well, I'm talking about the point in time when I remember growing up when my dad having CNN and he was looked at as like one of the #1 terrorists in the country. And when I did my research, found out like this dude wasn't that bad.
Well, we supported Gaddafi's revolution because Gaddafi was, first of all, he had a secular state. It was not a Muslim state, you know. And secondly, they're not Arabs, they're Africans. They say, oh, it was the Arab Spring. And what the Black Panther Party taught and what people need to do is you have to have a correct analysis, but you have to base it on facts, not on conjecture. It doesn't matter what we think. It matters, okay, what is Gaddafi doing? And what was he doing at that moment that made him the centerpiece? And who killed him? We think that the people rose up and killed him. We don't have any information on that. They say the people rose up and they killed him. That's it.
Yeah, right.
And we all know from past history that this was a CIA orchestrated murder. But it was done in such a way that everybody in Libya is going to remember what happened. Now, of course, they had a little bombing at the embassy not long after that. And so I use Gaddafi as an example because most black people have no idea that there was a Muammar Gaddafi, that there is a place called Libya. And let's just think about that. And that he was the only person trying to bring about economic unity among the African states. And he was also our only friend. He gave all that money to Farrakhan. And he has also proven that he wanted to unite with black people in the U.S. Now, they got all that oil. You don't think that they want to have Gaddafi. He has maybe one of the finest oil deposits.
Okay.
So this is about oil, this is about control, this is about power.
You connect the Africans
But we don't
with
know
that.
any of that.
If we connect
But
the
back
oil,
in the day, we could put that out. We had a newspaper. We don't have a newspaper anymore. We don't even have black newspapers that matter. What is Ebony? What is an Essence? We can't even talk about, right? What do we have that even has our information? BET? Seriously? What do we have in terms of information? And even when we have these little pockets, we're not doing anything. We have fashion shows and achievements by Negroes who get a corporate job. We're still putting people on the cover of Ebony magazine when they get a job. It's getting a little hot right here. No, I just mean this
Yeah, I understand that.
So I think that we have to figure out ways, those of us who are conscious, to raise consciousness. That is the only job we have right now. That was the job of the party. We did it through action, but we did that. That was our job. Our job was not to make the revolution. Our job was to involve the people. When the black police officers of Chicago linked up with Fred Hampton because they were so terrified of the white boys, that was a big break. They had moved away from being regular pigs.
So wait, you saying that
using that as an example.
So that's
if you have all these Negroes working in the United States Army, you're cooked. We ain't gonna have no support because
so we have to have a black agenda.
We have to have an agenda. We don't have one.
We have to have the agenda.
And we have to have action.
We have to have action. We have to have organization, and we have to have strength in the organization. And we can't be begging for someone that doesn't care.
No, it's not they don't care. They're your oppressor. Now, the average white boy in the street, I'm not interested in. You can't put me in prison, and you can't kill me because I can kill you. You don't like me, I not get a job in your little place. Okay, I go somewhere else. It's like the brother said last night, he can't get a job with the Vietnamese. I was embarrassed by that, quite frankly. This is not the sign of a man who's ready to stand up. You're gonna be mad at the Vietnamese because you.
I think he was just using an example that.
Yeah, but that's not a good example.
I think he was basically saying that us black folks always pride ourselves to be able to go to someone else's place to get a job. He's saying that I can't go to a Vietnamese.
I know, but why are you even involved in that conversation? Because that means I can't go to the white man and get a job. So what?
Well, I think that he was saying more or less like we're not supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be doing that for ourselves.
No, that's not what he said. But if
So
he has to
regroup.
But anyway, the bottom line is, we do have to work, and we do have to have an education, and we have to get it where we can get it. But that doesn't mean we have to make the kind of commitment that we make to these jobs and to this stuff. You know how these Negroes get a job at Wells Fargo Bank? They should be saying, "Come on down here, Barry. I'm gonna tell you how the loan papers go."
Yeah.
They don't even tell you that. You come in there, they treat you worse than they treat white people, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday, you was living in the project.
Yeah.
A little affirmative action program that somebody like me put together and got you a job as a teller, which is one step removed from being a cashier at McDonald's because it requires the same skill sets.
Indeed.
Take your order.
Talking about these field Negroes, and I wanted to kind of touch on
Field
this.
and house, right?
And house, all deals.
Using Malcolm X's paradigm.
Yeah, and shouts out to the great brother Malcolm. How do you feel in the current state of where we are again in Black America when you hear these comments from Common saying
you have to criticize.
You have to put your hand out.
But what Common said is so shameful. Go ahead and say what he said.
No, I was just saying, and you have to show love.
And this is to Jon Stewart. He's on Jon Stewart's show.
Because he's moved into the elite, and we know doors have been opened, and Common, who most would say is a conscious artist, saying those words.
He would like to say he's a conscious artist.
Yeah, I mean,
at one point.
But now what I'm looking at is, it seems like a lot of Negroes, and I've also talked to public officials that have said to me, in my face, clearly, that we need to move past Eric Gardner and past Mike Brown, because it was the past. How do we deal
not to count slavery?
Yeah, and how do we deal with individuals that this is how they speak and reign?
We have to take them out. One of the great things in the Black Panther newspaper that was published for 13 years every week, and it killed us, and we got real horrible battles that we can tell you about in distributing that newspaper. But we had a thing called the Bootlicker's Corner.
Say it again?
We had a section of the paper, we had like a column called the Bootlicker's Corner.
Okay.
And every week we posted up some bootlicker, right? And as Ron Dellum said at the time, the last thing a black person wants to do is find himself in the Black Panther Party paper's Bootlicker Corner, right? See, Common should have been in there. We should have been, all these people, nobody even criticized him. And one of the reasons we don't criticize is because we fear white people will see us.
Well, I mean, I've criticized them.
No, I'm saying, but white people will not like us. Or they'll know that we have problems, as though they define what we should be thinking.
Yes.
We don't have any choice. But Common, I couldn't believe John Legend looked like a revolutionary next to him. At the Oscars, he said the same thing. Yeah. He compared the civil rights struggle to the French magazine that had just been assaulted, remember?
Yeah, definitely.
To the same right. Yeah. Well, we're looking for rights just like they were. And I'm a guy coming out of Southside Chicago, wherever he's from. And that was the prelude to his worst statement, which was, we just need to reach out our hand and show some love to the white man. And Jon Stewart just loved that. He ate that up.
Yeah,
so we have to criticize that as broadly as we can so that there's no comfort. You can't find comfort behaving like that. I'm ready to criticize Jay-Z because you made all that money pretending you from the BK and all that stuff. You a dope, you slinging dope. You a brother from the hood.
Yeah.
You made money in the beginning. Now, I grant you that white people are probably your main audience now.
Yeah.
But your money and your fame arose from your history in the street.
Yes.
Have you put up one factory in Brooklyn of all those clothes that you make and overcharge people for? And P. Diddy, whatever his name is today.
Yeah, all them brothers.
They have made all those. I'm not even going to talk about whatever his name is, other rapper that married to the white girl or whatever he is. It's just crazy. Kanye West. Just crazy, okay? And he claims to have a parent that was in the Black Panther Party. Did you know that? Yeah. So these guys have the mic, but they have the mic for a reason. And in this hip-hop universe, when you go back, of course you had Africa Bambaataa and all that kind of stuff. And you had the Last Poets, by the way.
Yes, indeed. Shouts out.
And they were still only speaking about struggle. We were in existence when they were writing their poems. But okay, barring all of that, I say there was this moment when Ice-T put out a record called Cop
Killer. Indeed, I love that joint.
And Dan Quayle, the then vice president, said, I cannot believe because of what we did to create the conditions for them. You're not special, Common. You're just some nigga from the street. Everybody that blows what you blow can blow. Everything you blow.
What he 40 said, there'll be a new nigga next year?
Right. Well, I mean, it was like In my day, people were on the street corner singing doo-wop, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a brother that couldn't sing. You couldn't sing in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
You better not come out the house.
Talent's out there.
Everybody had to be able to sing in a group, and everybody wanted to have a group. So you know how many young brothers are in the hood thinking they're gonna be a rapper. Every last one of them got rap, right? All of them are writing rap. Common's not special. The conditions were there for him to do that, because once they got rid of Ice-T and that whole political piece of NWA and Chuck D and Public Enemy, once they kind of crushed them,
X-Clan, the whole
once
team.
they crushed that piece,
Yes.
they said you can sing gangster rap. Come on, Snoop Dogg with your press tag.
Because it has no validity. It has
More importantly, it's gonna create chaos in your community. You're gonna be down here being in the ghetto, and then you have a person like Lil Wayne, the ultimate absurdity, walking around with his pants down. I don't even know I can't even understand what language he speaks.
Yeah.
And then this guy from Canada,
Drake,
who's trying to identify as black. I don't get it, but I do get it, because that's who gets promoted, because I'm the capitalist. I run the country. You think I want people running around here talking about off the pig? You think when that's what was there back in the, I'll say in the early 70s. Well, 70s. 70s.
I was just talking about the hip hop when it started coming out. Yeah.
I mean, people were like, fuck the police. You fill in the gaps with fluff and bullshit. We just happy that black people on TV now. Here is Kerry Washington thanking the Disney company for taking a chance on a black woman in the series scandal. This is what she got up at the NAACP Awards and said.
Well, I mean, the NAACP Awards. Think about it.
What goes on? So if we who are conscious, we need to start being the message police or something. I don't care. Yeah. You don't get to be common, and black people gonna start supporting. You're gonna have to come on out, and we're gonna denounce you. This is the new day, Uncle Tom. And they get an organization going, that has some real base in the community, that is action oriented, and that has an ideology for freedom and liberation.
And make sure we call out the coons.
Well, I think criticism is critical at this point, because it's critical because we can't even talk about the white man, because there's 1,000 Negroes that when you try to shoot a white man, there's 1,000 Negroes that take that bullet for him.
Wow. And
shoot you before they'll definitely think about that.
Wow.
And if am I right about that?
I mean,
it's 1,000 Negroes. They'll jump. What you get ready? They're in the army. They're in the police department. They're guards in the prison. And that's not counting your average Negro.
And when you was talking about that whole, like how the brothers used to be talking about the police and now they are the police in the movies and stuff like that, the craziest thing that I see sometimes is a lot of the brothers, they're security guards. Like when the young man was talking about,
we'll kill you trying to steal some paper from a store.
Like we were talking about you can't get a job at an agent spot, not inside the store, but you can guard their store. Like brothers are guarding their property.
And you're supposed to kill somebody. Well, let's take the case very quickly. This is another one of these cases. Well, this wasn't necessarily black, but it was a black guy involved. But Home Depot in Emeryville, right outside of Oakland, right?
Yeah.
Sister goes in. They say she stole something. Of course, we'll never know because she's never been charged or convicted. But they catch her or something, and they're asking. She says she won't open her purse or whatever it is that happened. So she leaves or something. The police come. She's running away. They break out assault rifles and mow her down. She wasn't just shot with like a handgun. She was shot with an assault rifle.
When this happened?
About 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
You vet somebody. So nobody really cared about that case. We tried to. So what I'm saying though is, in order for you to care about it, you have to do some work on it. You can't just come out one day and have it.
It's almost like a disrespect. Like, even with the black president, we still going to lynch you currently in 2015, and that's a green light.
We were so happy to see this. Obama, he became Jesus. Black people wearing shirts that said, he is the dream. Yeah. It's like, please, I hope Dr. King is not really anywhere in any world. He doesn't really, that white people sat down and analyzed, this is what black people, they don't care what we think because we ain't in charge of anything. That's my point. What they fearing? They already know. I done shot Oscar Grant in the back. I done shot this guy Scott in the back.
We got four.
I done choked Eric Garner to death over some alleged theft of a cigarette. This sister in Emeryville has been killed with assault rifles by male police. All the things that go on a day-to-day basis. We have the highest unemployment. We have the lowest education. We don't have any health care. All of this stuff. Why are they fearing us? Now during the time of the Black Panther Party, which Chuck D always likes to refer back to, because they practically dressed up like they were in the Panther Party from the beginning, Public Enemy, right? So they came out with all that rhetoric. But ain't nobody white running around here worried about you and me. You walk in, they might be like, oh, what are you doing here? And people get all upset, little stuff like, I walked in the restaurant and they disrespected me, or I couldn't get a taxi, and all this little teeny day-to-day shit. Although most of the taxi drivers aren't even white anymore. But, so all this little day-to-day stuff. But in the big picture, white people know this is their country. You got a choice between Hillary Clinton, a warmonger, and some Republican who, I don't know if it could be worse or better. It's just an absurdity, right? So ain't nobody worried about what black people think. Obama couldn't even say black. So there was no plan for Obama to be the black president. Black people thought that. And that white people ain't worried about what we think. Are we in control of anything here? No. We ain't got no power, and we're not trying to exert any power. But the people that put Obama in, the people that were the Obama people, found themselves a cardboard cutout that they knew somebody had to challenge the system in such a way that that there wouldn't be revolution. In other words, everybody hated Bush. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
They hated Bush, right? Yeah. So people were ready to tear this country up. And they said, we got to put
we got to give something to them.
We got to give them the image, the cardboard cutout. Yes. And we know we get all the black votes. Yeah. And so we just need to get the liberal, the young change. Young people gonna love it. People, they little bit. He's twittering. Everybody's like, oh, he's like us.
Hip, he's us.
He's us. And so people.
Bill Clinton reincarnated in a real black.
Even worse. Right. So they did that to keep the revolution from going forward, because everybody was pissed off. And
if Bush or McCain would have got elected,
it would have been on. They knew that.
Mayhem.
If I was a Republican, I would have put him in.
And I said that too, but people don't want to hear that.
No. If I were a Republican, I would have been voting for Obama.
They didn't want to see that truth.
Well, that's all right, because Negroes, but now they finally coming around the last 2 months that he has left, whatever it is.
And then they giving us.
They're like, oh. So my point though is, the Obama presidency for me was a way to crush the spirit of revolution that was stirring in the world. Okay. And what does Obama do when he first gets in? He bails out banks. Now, Bush had been there, or McCain, and bailed out some banks, it'd have been on. Wouldn't it? Yeah. White people would have risen up. Yeah. But when white people rise up, America will have a revolution.
And at that point in time, it was that point of a boiling, because everybody was losing their job. People were losing their homes.
And they were pissed off about war, everything.
The whole thing.
And so we were at the brink of a movement coming together.
So you don't just believe like it's the simple fact that green light, you got Obama, he can't help you. They just ain't paying attention. They just doing what the hell they're supposed to do.
It's a lack of consciousness. They won one more piece of the minds of black people to be quiet and sit down. We couldn't even oppose Obama. We were scared. People would try to kill you, trying to talk about you when you weren't going to vote for Obama. The status quo. Ain't nothing changed.
Wow.
And use the language of change and come out with this sort of half black face.